step into the fascinating world of King Henry VII, the man who founded the Tudor dynasty. From his dramatic rise to power after the Battle of Bosworth Field to his shrewd governance that shaped England's future, this video answers the 10 most frequently asked questions about one of history's most intriguing monarchs. Curious about his victories over pretenders, his role in ending the Wars of the Roses, or his financial policies? Let's dive into the life and legacy of this brilliant yet often underestimated king. Number 1. Who was Henry VII and how did he become king? Lancastrian Henry Tudor was the first monarch of the Tudor dynasty. He became King Henry VII after defeating Yorkist King Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, a decisive moment in the Wars of the Roses. Henry was the senior Lancastrian claimant by the time of the battle, his claim coming from his mother, Lady Margaret Beaufort, who was descended from John of Gaunt, son of King Edward III. But Henry claimed the throne by right of conquest. A few months after his victory, Henry married Elizabeth of York, eldest daughter of the late King Edward IV, thus uniting the rival royal houses of Lancaster and York. Number 2. What was Henry VII's relationship with the Wars of the Roses? The Wars of the Roses, a series of conflicts between the royal houses of Lancaster and York, were brought to an end in Henry VII's reign. Although it's often said that Henry's victory at Bosworth ended the Civil War, the last battle of the Wars of the Roses was actually the Battle of Stoke Field in 1487, which saw Henry VII's forces fight the Yorkist forces of Francis Lord Lovell, John de la Pole, Earl of Lincoln, and Thomas Fitzgerald. They were looking to depose Henry and to replace him with Lambert Simnel, who they claimed was Edward, Earl of Warwick, son of George, Duke of Clarence. Henry VII's forces were victorious. Although the king did have to deal with further rebellions, the Wars of the Roses were over, and the Tudor dynasty was successfully established. Number 3. Who did Henry VII marry, and why was it significant? Well, as I said, Henry married Elizabeth of York. They got married on the 18th of January 1486, just under 5 months after the Battle of Bosworth Field. Henry had made a promise on Christmas Day 1483 at Rennes Cathedral during his exile in Brittany that he would marry Elizabeth and unite the houses of Lancaster and York. This promise was important as it brought more disillusioned Yorkists onto his side. Their union was a successful one. Not only did it help stabilise the kingdom after years of civil war, it was a happy and successful marriage that produced 4 children who survived childhood, although one, Prince Arthur, died when he was 15. Henry had a spare though, and on his death in 1509, Henry VII was able to pass the throne on to his second son, Henry, unchallenged. Quite a feat. Number 4. What were Henry VII's key achievements as king? Henry VII restored financial stability to England and passed on a fortune to his son. He avoided costly wars. He secured the loyalty of the nobility. He strengthened royal authority through legal reforms. He secured alliances through marriages, including his children's unions with the Spanish and Scottish royalty. He built a good relationship with Parliament. He helped the English wool and cloth trades by trading alum, which was needed for dyeing fabrics. He supported exploration, and he used skilled men as his advisors, promoting men with ability and on merit rather than favouring noblemen. Number 5. How did Henry VII deal with pretenders like Lambert Simnel and Perkin Warbeck? Henry successfully suppressed challenges to his rule by defeating Lambert Simnel in the Battle of Stoke Field in 1487 and capturing Perkin Warbeck in 1497. After defeating Simnel's supporters at Stoke Field, Henry pardoned 10-year-old Simnel, seeing him as just a pawn. Henry put him to work in his kitchens, and later Simnel became a falconer. He died a natural death sometime between 1525 and 1535. As for Perkin Warbeck, he too was initially spared by Henry, but he ended up being hanged in November 1499 after trying to escape from the Tower of London with Edward Plantagenet, Earl of Warwick. These victories against the two pretenders and their supporters solidified Henry's position as a strong ruler. Number 6. What was Henry VII like as a person? Henry VII appears to have been intelligent, shrewd and cautious. Italian humanist scholar, priest, diplomat and historian Polydore Virgil, who was in England from 1502 and worked on his Anglica Historia, a history of the Wars of the Roses, at Henry VII's behest, said of the king, "His spirit was distinguished, wise and prudent. His mind was brave and resolute, and never, even at moments of the greatest danger, deserted him. He had a most pertinacious memory. Withal, he was not devoid of scholarship. In government he was shrewd and prudent, so that no one dared to get the better of him through deceit or guile. He was gracious and kind, and was attentive to his visitors as he was easy of access. His hospitality was splendidly generous. He was fond of having foreigners at his court, and he freely conferred favours of them. But those of his subjects who were indebted to him and who did not pay him due honour, or who were generous only with promises, he treated with harsh severity. He well knew how to maintain his royal majesty and all which appertains to kingship at every time and in every place. He was most fortunate in war, although he was constitutionally more inclined to peace than to war. He cherished justice above all things. As a result, he vigorously punished violence, manslaughter, and every other kind of wickedness whatsoever. Consequently, he was greatly regretted on that account by all his subjects, who had been able to conduct their lives peaceably, far removed from the assaults and evil doings of scoundrels. He was the most ardent supporter of our faith, and daily participated with great piety in religious services. To those whom he considered to be worthy priests, he often secretly gave alms so that they should pray for his salvation. He was particularly fond of those Franciscan friars whom they called observants, for whom he founded many convents, so that with his help their rule should continually flourish in his kingdom. But all these virtues were obscured latterly only by avarice, from which he suffered. This avarice is surely a bad enough vice in a private individual, whom it forever torments. In a monarch, indeed, it may be considered the worst vice, since it is harmful to everyone and distorts those qualities of trustfulness, justice and integrity by which the state must be governed. Number 7. What role did Henry VII play in the creation of the Tudor dynasty? Well, he founded it on the throne of England when he became king in 1485. He was able to successfully defeat pretenders and rebellions, thus consolidating his power. He had 2 sons, thus securing the succession, and with his wise governance and avoidance of war, he left a relatively stable kingdom to his son Henry VIII, along with full coffers. Number 8. Where and when was Henry VII born? Henry was born on the 28th of January 1457 at Pembroke Castle in Wales. His parents were Lady Margaret Beaufort and Edmund Tudor, Earl of Richmond. The Earl of Richmond had died a few months before Henry's birth. Number 9. How did Henry VII manage the economy? Henry and his advisors implemented strict financial policies, such as pursuing feudal dues and bonds and recognizances, which also helped to control the nobility. Historian John Guy goes as far as saying that they disabled the nobility. Bonds and recognizances were legal agreements whereby nobles pledged to pay significant sums of money if they disobeyed the king or were disloyal. This system financially bound the nobility to good behaviour. Henry also improved tax collection and increased crown lands by the Act of Resumption. He improved the management of crown estates, kept hold of land rather than giving it away as rewards, and he monitored royal accounts and government spending. As I said, he chose diplomacy and peace over war, which was incredibly expensive. He also boosted English shipping and made valuable trade deals. And He was a frugal king. And finally, number 10. When and how did Henry VII die? 52-year-old Henry died on the 21st of April 1509 at Richmond Palace, probably from tuberculosis. He was succeeded by his second son, 17-year-old Henry, as Henry VIII. Henry VII was laid to rest in the Lady Chapel that he'd commissioned at Westminster Abbey in a vault with his wife Elizabeth of York. He'd been King of England for over 23 years. Henry VII's story is one of resilience, strategy and transformation. From uniting two warring houses to securing the Tudor throne for future generations, his reign laid the foundation for one of England's most iconic dynasties. Whether you see him as a frugal reformer or a controlling king, his impact on history is undeniable. But now it's over to you. What do you find the most fascinating about Henry VII? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more Tudor tales. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.